All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. It's the first webinar of the year. Today, we're going to talk about business development trends for 2024. We always like to start with this webinar every year because, well, we think it's important, of course, to give everybody the chance to be up to speed and really making sure that you are, setting yourself up for success every year. So here we are. As mentioned, I see a lot of new names, so I want to start with a quick introduction. I'm Lucia. I'm the founder of the BD School. I'm Italian, as I just mentioned a few minutes ago. However, I live in Rotterdam, the Netherlands, for about 10 years now, and that's also where we founded our company called the BD School. What is the BD School? Obviously stands for the Business Development Schools, and what we are is the first personalized learning platform entirely dedicated to business development, and we are on a very ambitious mission, which is to create the next generation of business developers using the power of knowledge. Now, how do we do that? Well, we do it in a few different ways. The first one is exactly what we're doing now. So we produce a lot of content related to business development, articles, videos, webinars, social media content, and so on. Everything very practical and really designed to give you tools and knowledge that you can use in your day-to-day job. The second thing we do is courses. So we provide a lot of courses on business development and business development related topics, skills, strategies, and so on. And the last thing we do is one-on-one coaching as well, especially for the busiest ones of us that don't have the time to follow a course, but they want to have a coach. Everything we do is very practical, very hands-on. So all our courses, and you will see also the webinars, very filled with practical information. Courses, they're also filled with the practical exercises, role plays, and so on. And everything is based on our own experience. We're a team of about 15 people. All our trainers are based everywhere in the world, from Brazil to Italy, the Netherlands, and so on. And over the past 5 years, we trained about 500 people, again, everywhere in the world. If you want, feel free to have a look at the website, thebdschool.com, so you can have a better idea of what we do. Now, enough for the introductions. Let's get started with the juice of today's meeting. So the agenda for today is, of course, having a deep dive into the trends for 2024. We identify 5 major trends for business development, and we have some ideas also to implement your trends in your own specific cases. At the end, there will be a Q&A session, so feel free to write down your questions in the chat, or as mentioned before, you can also just unmute yourself at the end of the session. It will not be recorded, and you will be able to ask your questions. All right, so BD trends for 2024. Let's start with the first one. Obviously, generative AI is on the rise. It's been for a couple of years now, but definitely taking a major role in our business development life. The second trend, a big trend, is what we call the skills first approach. We have then in the third position, new customer expectations. We're going to see how the customers of today are behaving and what they expect from us, and that we can adapt to them. The importance of social media. Also, this is not really a very new trend. It's been going on for many years, but we see how that is really becoming mandatory for us in business development to be active and to use social media properly. And the last one that I'm very happy about, is actually a focus on profitability versus vanity metrics. Let's get started with the first one, which is obviously generative AI. Now, you probably heard, and I hope so, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably heard of something called ChatGPT, or all sorts of other tools that are labeled as AI tools. Now, before getting into that, I want to make a little parenthesis into what is generative AI, because it's not, let's not assume that everybody knows that. Now, when we're talking about generative AI, we're talking about the type of technology that basically produces various types of content, obviously text, images, audio, but even vocal notes, and so on. And the way it works is basically using machine learning models, which are basically ways to train this piece of software, let's say. that basically learns the patterns and the correlations between the input that we give to this model. And then what it does basically creates similar content based on the input that we gave them, right? So it's really basically mimicking humans and trying to replicate and hopefully do it at the best, right? In terms of content, text, imaging, and so on. Now, obviously, AI has been, especially ChatGPT, I think is really now ubiquitous. I even met someone, I was in an Uber, and he was telling me that his father actually treats now ChatGPT as basically his best friend, he's retired, and he absolutely loves to talk to ChatGPT, right? Now, one thing and what is most relevant for us in business development is actually this very small piece of statistics from the Nielsen Norman groups that basically tells us that businesses that use AI, generative AI, like for example, ChatGPT, actually sees an improvement of the performance of the users by 66%. Now, this was made on 3 different case studies in an email after this webinar, and on the video description, I will also put the link to this, to all the statistics we're going to talk about today. Now, this, of course, tells us a very important piece of information, which is if we want to be more efficient, if we want to save time, if we want to be more precise in the way we work, we definitely need to embrace AI. So that is definitely the first thing we need to keep in mind. But if there wasn't enough to convince us, and I know that in BD we are all after, of course, excellence and results, a study from McKinsey actually showed that companies that used AI managed to decrease their cost up to 14–15% sometimes, and increase the revenue up to 10%. Now, we can also see the different functions of the respondents of this survey. First one is marketing and sales. We can fit BD probably a bit in the middle of these two. And then we have all the other functions. Now, of course, it is a huge opportunity for us because if we're able to use this AI technology, if we become more digitally literate, we can really save ourselves a lot of time. But on top of that, we manage to generate more value for the companies we work for, or for our own companies, right? So even if you're a bit skeptical about AI, or maybe you're scared of how that's gonna evolve, right? It is a concern that is definitely present among the population. As a professional, you really can't escape at this point, right? So maybe a couple of years ago, it was something that was still a little bit up in the air, but AI now is here to stay. So we really need to make sure that we integrate it in our processes. Now, how can we apply AI in business development? And that's largely based on what we use also here at the BD School. Now, the first thing you can do is actually to use AI to brainstorm growth ideas. Now, obviously, as business developers, our job is to find new ways to generate opportunities, right? Ideally, to be creative and to do something that can really disrupt the way we generate revenue and value for our companies. Now, the way we can do that, of course, is trying to think a little bit out of the box. We're going to talk also about skills. However, if you're not a very creative person, AI can actually really help you a lot to come up with some ideas that can potentially revolutionize the way you do business development and generate more value for your organization. Now, the second use case, the second application of AI in business development can be competitive intelligence, right? Now, tools like ChatGPT, for example, they can provide you with lists of competitors. They can even highlight strengths and weaknesses of your competitors. But again, we shouldn't stop only at ChatGPT because there is actually a wealth of tools that we can use. We're not going to have the time to talk about tools for this webinar. However, in February, we have a webinar dedicated to AI and the use of AI in business development. So make sure you check that out on our website as well. So competitive intelligence. Third use case and application of AI in business development is building contact list. One thing I did, for example, was to simply ask ChatGPT to give me the list of the top 100 competitors of one of our major clients. Of course, our idea was to get into this sector. So for us, it was important to have an idea of what was this ecosystem like, who were the big players, so that we could actually enter these businesses. all this took literally 2 seconds to do, right? So super fast, efficient, and can really help you speed the process. The other way you can use AI in business development is actually to do forecasting. You can do it by using CRM, last generation CRM tools that can really help you predict the effectiveness of your business development initiatives. And last, obviously, is personalization of your approach in pretty much every aspect of the business development life cycle. Now, one thing that I want to mention now is that what you would notice is that actually all these trends, they're all interconnected. There isn't really like one trend that you can take and extrapolate and use only that one. Most of them actually go hand in hand. And if you're able to integrate the 5 trends together, that's really where you can set yourself up for success when it comes to growing your business development career, generating more value for your company, and maybe get promotions, changing jobs, and so on, or growing your company if you're a founder. Now, trend number 1, AI. I guess there was no big surprise on this one. It's been on all newspapers. So let's move on to the second one, which is the skills first approach. Now, one thing that is changing in the labor market and business development in that sense is no different. Is really a different way of companies to actually assess candidates, right? Or assess their current employees. Now, what is happening is that basically we're not going anymore towards people that have specific degrees and so on. So let's say degrees are losing a little bit the power in the labor market. However, what is more important than ever is actually the skills that you possess, right? Now, the skills that you possess that need to be probably reviewed because there is one thing, which is a skills gap. This skills gap is actually let's say it was maybe COVID that made it more visible, right? Why is that? Because during COVID, everything had to move online. And that really showed how much unprepared we were as a workforce, really. Most of the people were actually not used to using digital tools, to going online, even Zoom, right? So now we're all here. But it happens to me very often, sometimes when we're doing training, that people are not really able to use Zoom or other tools. And that's okay. This is not, it's not really a minority. It is, the skills gap is actually so big that even the World Economic Forum is actually taking action on that. We're going to have a look at it. But one, let's say the statistic that really jumps to the eyes on this graphic is the fact that about 174 million, and this is only based on this specific research that I will share also with you later, and based on only 12 countries, well, they realized that almost 20% of the people actually needed to be reskilled, especially in digital skills, right? So that, of course, is a little bit of a problem, right? So it is very difficult for companies to find the right talent. On the other hand, it is an opportunity for you here today to actually start focusing on the skills of the future so that you can become the person that can get certain jobs and can really have the choice in terms of labor, right? Now, the other statistic I wanted to show you about the skills gap is another research by McKinsey & Company. This was actually from last year, not 2024. However, it takes into account a larger span over 10 years. So in this survey, basically, they asked organizations whether they were already experiencing a skills gap or whether they expected to have a skills gap within their organizations, right? Now, when we're talking about skills gap, we're really talking about employees that do not possess the necessary skills to perform the jobs, which makes it very difficult, of course, for companies to recruit, but also for potential employees to find a suitable job. Now, the majority of the respondents, so 43% of the respondents, actually mentioned that the skills gap was already happening right now, right? So we're already at the stage in which we're already obsolete, right? So we really need to put an effort into upskilling and reskilling ourselves. And then other companies mentioned that this was going to happen in the next 2 years, 3 years, 6 years, and 10 years. Now, what this means also is that many companies now are realizing the importance of providing training, whether internal, external, providing training opportunities, right? And as mentioned before, it also shows the fact that companies now are way less interested in degrees as long as you possess the skills to do the job, right? So even more important to focus on your personal development. As I said a couple of minutes ago, the skills gap is so important and is so big that the World Economic Forum actually launched this initiative in, I believe it was 2019, which is called the Reskilling Revolution. Now, the Reskilling Revolution is actually backed by many large companies in the world. We have McKinsey is one of them, but we have Unilever and so on. So really large corporations. Now, what they want to do, what's the goal of the Reskilling Revolution, is actually to reskill up to 1 billion people with the skills of the future until before 2030, right? So that is the deadline that they gave themselves. So it's really a problem that is really present across regions, across industries. There isn't really any industry that is and type of job that is not touched by the reskilling revolution. So once again, this is your chance to really take your skills to the next level and prioritize your personal development. Now, the Bush and Seti, which is the strategy principle at PwC, actually proposes an idea, which is this exactly what I was mentioning before, having a skills-first approach. Now, the skills-first approach is really this idea that companies now look more at the skills that you possess rather than the credential that you possess. And he believes that actually a skills-first approach can really help to achieve sustainable economic and business outcomes. It also is going to help, let's say, people to develop different ways of career paths, different talents, and eventually is going to help companies to also fix the labor shortage that they actually face at the moment. So overall, the skills-first approach seems to be the approach of the future that is really going to help to create a more inclusive workforce and really a workforce that is able to tackle the challenges of the future. Now, the World Economic Forum every year launches a survey, which is basically the state of work. The last one was in April 2023, so soon is going to be also done for 2024. However, keep in mind that most of the trends we're talking about, they're really mega trends, right? So they're trends that take place over many years. It's not something that happens one day to the other. So in the latest report of the World Economic Forum, they actually made the list of the top skills on the rise. Keep in mind that this is just the top 10. However, the list is much longer than that. I will link you the report as well. Now, among the top 10 skills, we have creative thinking, analytical thinking, technological literacy, curiosity, and lifelong learning, just what I was mentioning before, resilience, systems thinking, AI, motivation and self-awareness, talent management, and then service orientation and customer service. Now, not all the skills are going to be relevant to business development, or I always say by all means, do develop all the skills that you're interested in and that you think are going to be necessary for your job. But more realistically, for people that are busy and that don't have much time to focus on training, getting certificates and so on, the most important skills really for business development pros. And that here I'm not mentioning the digital skills, which are as equally important and you should definitely focus on, but definitely one advantage that we have as BDs is that we can really use technology to enhance what we do, to make our job easier, to make our job more efficient and so on. However, our superpower is really the human skills, is the soft skills. Why is that? Because we have a job, luckily, that really obliges us to be in touch with other people, to really try to get what is most valuable for the other person we're talking to, be it a partner, internal stakeholder, client, and so on. So, of course, the skills that we really should prioritize are soft skills. One of them is emotional intelligence, communication skills, I think we can't escape that. Problem-solving skills, also very important. High-level strategy, another important skills for business development pros, and thought leadership. However, as I mentioned, it is absolutely crucial that you really learn digital skills, that you learn a little bit about data analysis, that you learn a little bit how these new technologies work, what they are, and what is the potential for you, what opportunities they represent for you. But then again, you know, business developers are going to have more or less the same skills. If you're able to leverage these soft skills, that's really where you can assert yourself as a business development professional. Now, let's move on to the next trend, which is new customers' expectations. So let's see a little bit what is happening in the world of buyers, right? Now, obviously, I always say that, and I've seen some of our alumni here actually. I always say that the best business development strategy is always a strategy that puts the customers first. We spend countless hours doing customer research. We encourage our students to never assume anything about their customers. Why? Because customers' behaviors nowadays are changing very rapidly. Now, besides the fact that you know, customer preferences can change regardless, obviously the fact that we have access to so much information, to so many options, makes it very easy for customers, you know, to to change the way they want to buy, or to change what they want to buy as well, right? So super important, first of all, that we put always the customer first. But how are the customers of today, right? So I have a couple of statistics for here. Now, the first one is from the Forrester's Annual Buyer Journey Survey. Now, in this survey, what came out was that, and it's a very significant statistic. Now, the first one is that 64% of today's buyers were born after 1980, which means the majority of the buyers are either millennials or Gen Zers. Now, since I'm assuming now, but let me know in the chat that we're mostly millennials here. Now, we have a specific way to buy, right? Now, the way we like to buy, especially millennials, is actually not necessarily going to, you know, demos or to go and ask for advice and so on. What we do is we look online, right? So almost all of us, and I'm pretty sure not only millennials actually at this point, but 89% of B2B buyers, and that is extended also to B2C, actually search the internet before buying. That is something that we just can't escape, right? Now, if you just close your eyes and you think about the last thing that you bought, just try to reverse engineer the process, right? What did you do? Pretty sure you probably saw an ad on LinkedIn, or maybe you just thought, oh, well, that would be so cool to have this. And then you immediately went on Google trying to find options, images, and so on, right? Now, what this means is that when a potential buyer reaches out to a company, they don't necessarily need to be educated, right? So because they already found all the information they needed online, when they arrive to you is because they're considering you as a potential solution for their problems, right? Now, one thing which I was quite surprised, but also relieved to read, is that many of the millennials, most of us, not only we seek information online, but we are actively seeking out negative reviews for our for whatever it is that we want to buy, right? Now, I say I'm relieved because I'm one of them. I do exactly the same. So most of the times when I want to buy something, I don't care about the positive reviews because I already have an idea of, obviously, I want this to work, right? So whatever solution that is. But I want to make sure that I read the negative reviews because I want to avoid mistakes, right? Now, obviously, if there are a lot of negative reviews, then we have a problem. But besides the negative reviews, In general, people are looking for confirmation, right? So they want to feel some sort of trust towards the brands they engage with, the brands, the companies they engage with, right? So what does it mean and in terms of expectations from our customers? So when they're looking for solutions, what are they really looking for? Now, the first thing they're looking for is information. So that's really the most important thing that we need to get into our head. We need to provide and we need to feed information to our potential customers at every stage of the customer journey, right? Now, obviously, we don't have to do everything ourselves as business developers. Ideally, we have colleagues in marketing and other colleagues in the companies. But if you're a founder, if you work for a very small company, even if you're looking for a job, and we can really apply that also to the job seeking, the first thing you need to provide is information. You really want to make sure that you understand so well your customers, that you're able to produce content that is engaging, interesting, but most of all, that provides value to your potential customers, again, partners and stakeholders in general. The second thing that buyers of today are looking for is customer experience. And now by customer experience, we're not just saying, oh, there needs to be a customer service team helping us, which for some companies would be already gold. I'm talking about very large companies, airlines. I had very bad experience with Lufthansa, for example, where it was basically impossible to get in touch with anyone in their customer service team. So let's say customer service team is now like the bare minimum you can do. When we're talking about customer experience, we're talking about providing a smooth experience from start to end, providing a personalized approach from start to end, and providing relevant, again, knowledge and information that helps them take the right decisions. Of the customer experience, the most important one and the most important trend that we're going to see more and more is really related to personalization. So the more you can personalize the experience through email marketing, but also from one-on-one relations, right? Especially if you work on B2B, very large deal sizes and so on. One-on-one and attention to the person behind the screen or behind the phone or in front of you, it's very important. Another important trend in terms of really in terms of customer experience is that, again, we can fairly assume that when people reach the point in which they want to talk to us, they already have all the information, which means you can say goodbye to very lengthy sales processes. This is a great opportunity. It can really help us to speed up the process, which for some of you might be interesting to know. I know I had some alumni and students throughout the course of these 5 years that had sales cycles of sometimes even 3 years, right? Now, this, you can potentially change it, again, if you provide the right information. So you can say goodbye to long sales cycles, but you can also say goodbye to all these in-between steps that we created in companies, especially in tech and SaaS companies, which basically we created to simplify our own process, but that doesn't really add much to the customer. For example, and that is something I dread, the demo. Now, if you have a good product, if you provide a lot of information up front, you don't necessarily need to do a full demo, which most of the time is going to be boring, is just going to be showing a tool and so on. Personally, most of the times, I take a free trial if there is one, and I do not want to talk to anyone in the company until I've experienced the tool myself. I don't need someone to show me how to looks like. I want to make sure that I can use it and that it's easy enough for me to use it. So I always prefer trials over demos. So if you work in SaaS, that is something you can consider, right? So think and ask yourself the question, what type of information do I need to provide upfront so that when I get an inbound lead, which then should come more often, then basically I just have to focus on closing the deal with this potential client. The last thing that people, buyers of today, expect from you is to buy from experts. Now, again, we're talking about people that can find all sorts of information online, so they don't need to come to a meeting and, have you ask the same old questions or maybe do a presentation about what you do and so on. What they want is someone that advises them, that gives them strategies to solve their problems. And that's really what you should focus on as a business development pro. It's not really about closing deals or getting a client, getting a partner, and so on. You should really position yourself as a partner for the other person and provide value and really advise them on what's the best solution for their problems regardless, right? So if you manage to position yourself as the expert, as a thought leader, then that's really where you can make the difference in your customers' and partners' life. Now, trend number 4, it's social media. Now, again, this is not a trend that is happening now. It's not something that wasn't happening before, and it's so groundbreaking. That's really not the case. Social media has been there for ever by now. So we really need to keep that in mind. It's not a new thing. However, what is new is the fact that now it's so ubiquitous that if you're not on social media, if you refuse to be on social media, to be active on social media, you are effectively harming your business. Now, what I say always is that you don't need to be on all the social media either. For example, at the BD School, we actually took a stand and we do not want to be on TikTok. Even though TikTok is one of the platforms that is exploding, every brand is on there, people are making a lot of money on that and so on. We do not want to be on that because we basically don't like we just don't like the way it operates, right? So we don't like what it does to the people, to the users that use it. So you don't have to be on all social media platforms. You don't have to become an influencer or anything like that, but you have to use social media strategically to generate value for yourself and for your company. So you really can't escape it anymore, because as we saw, the majority of people anyway look for information online. And I also briefly mentioned job seekers is exactly the same. If you do not have an updated LinkedIn, you can forget being called for interviews, because that's the first thing that recruiters are going to check. They're not going to check your CV that you can lie on and you can create whatever scenario in your mind. They want to see that you're active on social media, on LinkedIn, not necessarily social media in general, but that you're active, that you're curated, and that you're a professional that would fit with their culture and with their company. So, importance of social media. Now, this statistic is from LinkedIn. Now, on LinkedIn, there is one thing which is called social selling index, which measures basically social selling. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But basically what they found out is that 45% of people that use social selling techniques, they're able to generate 45% more opportunities than their peers that don't. 51% is more likely to reach the quota, and 78% actually outperforms the peers that don't use social selling. Now, what is social selling and what are the components of social selling, and what is it that we have to pay attention to? Now, the 4 components of social selling are establishing your personal brand or professional brand. So really meaning making sure that your LinkedIn profiles, for example, is updated, that is curated, that you provide the right information, and so on. The other one is finding the right people. Now, finding the right people obviously depends on your industry and what it is that you provide. Engaging with insights, meaning sharing content, not only sharing content, but engaging with other people on LinkedIn, and then building relationships. Now, the social selling index was invented by LinkedIn mostly to sell their premium features like Sales Navigator and so on. However, what you have to keep from this is not necessarily the score of how does it work on LinkedIn. You have to keep in mind that if you want to win on social media, if you want social media to work for you, you cannot neglect one of these 4 elements. You need to work on your professional brand. You need to connect with relevant people. You need to have a relevant network. You need to share your expertise, and you need to build relationships. So that is crucial, again, to say, if you want to win business development in 2024. Now, If you're interested and curious, I also thought to put in here for the bravest of you that are going to start using social media more assiduously, more often. These are the type of content that offer the biggest return on investment on social media. This is from HubSpot. Now, the first thing is relatable content. Now, most of the times when I'm sharing content, the one that performs the best on LinkedIn, which is my primary platform, that's where I have almost 17,000 followers. The content that performs consistently the best is always the one where I either share personal experiences or something really relatable to my audience. Now, I've been working in business development for 17 years, so I have a lot of history stories to tell about that and a lot of field experience. So very often my content is relatable, and that's really the one that works the most. However, and that is something I'm not very good at, is trendy content. Now, there are a lot of like cultural moments, things that happen online, or like buzzwords, concepts, news stories, and so on. This also works really, really well because it's very on point, right? It's something that is happening right now, so you can really leverage trendy content as well. Obviously, educational and informational content is another very important type of content that can generate a good return on investment on your activities. Interactive content like polls, for example, they're also very good for return on investment. Funny content, I love to put GIFs here and there, or like funny videos and so on. And then last, content that reflects your brand's value. Now, it is interesting that the content that is more, let's say, on brand is actually also the one that performs the least. Why is there? Because people don't want to see something overly polished and so on. They're looking for authenticity, and they're looking, of course, for brands that fit with their values. That is another big trend, right? So really following companies that you feel closer to your values. However, if you want to win, really try to work more on relatable content, trendy content, and then educational content, which can really help you to become the thought leader that you're meant to be. Now, what does it mean for us in business development and what we should take from this trend? So the first one is to just master one social media channel. So identify the social media channel that is the most important for your audience. Again, if you're on a B2B space, most likely it's going to be LinkedIn. B2C, most likely it's going to be Instagram. However, do not settle on these two, which are the biggest, or TikTok and so on. Why? Because it doesn't matter whether you're B2B or B2C. What matters is where your audience is. It can also be that your audience is not on any of the social media, although very unlikely now. Maybe they don't use it as much. However, you can rest assured that whoever you're going to get in touch with, they're going to check you. When we do a cold outreach, for example, I always see that some of the people I reached out to with my emails, they do check my LinkedIn profile. So it is important that you keep it up to date and that you're really mastering that social media channel. But again, don't do what everybody else is doing just because everybody else is doing that. So maybe LinkedIn is not the right one for you. So just focus on another channel that is most relevant for your audience. But focus on one, don't go crazy with 10,000. Then focus on thought leadership. Now, one challenge I face with our students is that very often they're either shy, they don't feel like they have something to say, they don't want to write on social media for whatever position they have on social media, right? So that's like, they don't want to be on there, my company doesn't allow me, and so on. Now, one other trend that is happening is actually companies now, they're more and more open into having their employees to share information and to share knowledge online. Sometimes they vet the content that they share, but nevertheless, they understood that their employees can be a source of visibility for their companies. So that is also an excuse that soon is not going to be good anymore. However, whatever belief you have around sharing content and becoming a thought leader, always keep in mind that if you are the business developer working, or a founder working on specific solutions, and you believe that these solutions can really fix the problem problems of your audience, then it is your duty to actually share your knowledge and make sure that people know what you do so that they can solve their problems. That is really the mindset shift you have to make. But again, purely on a tactical level, if you want to win more business, be it on the form of partners, clients, new markets, new segments, and so on, you must focus on becoming thought leaders in your space, or at least showcase your expertise. Which means, obviously, you need to start sharing relevant content to make it easy. I always say you don't have to create fresh content or content on your own. We saw that AI can actually help us with that, but even without AI, you can ask your colleagues in marketing. You can even just reshare content that already exists, right? Articles from your companies, videos from your companies, videos, articles from other sources, right? The most important is that you spice it up with your own take on this concept. And of course, you have to share content that is relevant to your audience. That's super important because, well, if you just talk about your holidays, that's great. But at some point, it's going to bore your readers. So make sure that you share relevant content. And last, and that's one of the 4 pillars of the social selling index, is to engage with purpose. So it's very important that you're not just on social media, and that's something I see on LinkedIn all the time. It's not only about connecting with someone, sending a message, and that's it. You need to engage with the people in your network, meaning you need to comment on what they are talking about. Maybe leave a like once in a while. Just, share resources, ask for feedback, for mentorship, and so on, right? But really engage with your network. Don't just sit there and just spam everyone with cold outreach messages. Just make sure that you're engaging with purpose and that you share relevant information every time you do. Now, the last trend, and I'm very happy to see this one actually, is a larger focus on profitability over other types of metrics. Now, if we think about it with this scary crisis that is supposed to happen or it is happening and so on, and the shaky geopolitical environment that we're living on, obviously really makes it even more crucial for companies to focus on what really matters for them, right? So it's really not anymore the time in which we can allow to ourselves to spend crazy amounts of money on creative initiatives and so on that don't have a real return. It is time now for companies to actually focus on profitability. And you saw it on, you probably notice it across all industries and so on. Many people are losing their jobs, unfortunately. There is a constant restructuring going on, even in places and countries which you wouldn't think so, because maybe there was a lot of money going on and so on. So companies are going to start focusing on what really matters, which is sustainable long-term value, right? And that is why we are hired. Let's not forget that as business developers, our job is exactly this one, to create long-term, sustainable, and profitable value. Now, what does that mean, right? So we're basically moving from what is all vanity metrics, which are all things that people go crazy about, so the likes, the comments, the impressions, and this and that, to actually profit. All right, great, you made all these posts on LinkedIn, you got thousands of visualization and impressions. How much money did we make out of it, right? Now, when we start focusing on profit, we also become a lot more precise with our tactics and strategies, right? Because it's not anymore about, writing or sharing things for the sake of sharing or doing ads for the sake of doing ads. It's going to be, we want to do ads and share content for very specific audiences with very specific messaging that we can then transform into profit. Now, one thing I want to show you is that this is from my account, and this is the performance of my content over the last year, right? Now, we have almost 350,000 impressions. Why this and as well as the likes and the comments and the engagement and so on, why these are called vanity metrics? Because fundamentally, they don't really tell you much about this content, right? Great, I had 350,000 impressions. That doesn't mean I had 350,000 customers, right? It's really, they look good. and I see why people get really obsessed over it, and sometimes they really operate just to get more likes, more views, and so on. But this is really useless by itself. So if what you're doing doesn't generate real value, short or long term, you're not really doing it well, right? So, and that's why also there is going to be more of a shift towards profit and more in general to more concrete KPIs and to more concrete performance metrics, because these ones, they really don't tell you much about your performance. They just look great, but it really doesn't tell you much about how good you're doing. So this is something that is going to change, and I'm very happy about it, because then we're going to see probably a lot more relevant content being shared, maybe not relevant for everyone, but relevant for the niches, but something that is a little bit more practical and really more tangible than just, views, impressions, and so on. Now, what does it mean for us in BD? Now, the first thing we need to do is really to focus on revenue-driven KPIs. Now, I'm not sure if we have managers, founders, or only BDs here. However, what you need to keep in mind is that at any level, you can set yourself KPIs. I know that one big challenge of us in BD is that very often we don't have KPIs and we don't really have a way to measure what we're doing. But I really encourage you to work on it, either with your manager or alone, and really try to focus on KPIs that you can directly link with the revenue you generate. For example, return on investment, cost of acquisition, and so on. Now, if you want, we do have a webinar on how to measure business development. I will also share it after in the description and in the email. All right, so second thing that we have to keep in mind that is going to become ever more important for business developers is to really start working with data. Now, we cannot take decisions, we cannot launch experiments and business development initiatives just because they sound cool. There needs to be data to back that up. Now, obviously, we're not data analysts, and we should not become data analysts. However, we can work on our data analytical skills. So that's very important that in a way or another, you find the way to work on these skills. So the other one is to align with business goals. Now, one thing that I hear very often from business development professionals is that sometimes they come up with ideas, with initiatives, experiments, and so on, and then punctually their managers, their founders, and so on say, well, great, but we cannot do it now, right? How can you prevent that? Well, communication skills are going to be very important here, because you need to make sure that you communicate internally with your stakeholders all the time, and that you have crystal clear what is the strategy and the goals of the company for this year, this quarter, this next quarter, and so on. Now, when you align yourself with the business goals, then also your business development activities, they're going to be a lot more practical and a lot more tangible. So you're not going to have the manager coming to you after 3 months saying, okay, what have you been doing? And then you have to justify yourself. Whenever you align yourself with the business goals, you're able to prioritize your initiatives and making sure that you really focus on what moves the needle and what generates value for your company. And then obviously you need to really obsess with continuous optimization of your processes, of your tactics, your strategies, and so on. Now, at the BD School, we teach an experimental process to business development, so which is largely based on the Lean Startup model, but we applied it to business development. And the goal is exactly this one: come up with experiment ideas that can generate a positive return on investment, and then seeking ways to improve our processes, improve the way we do business development, and ideally come up with new ideas. Now, what can we do to implement these trends? Now, the first thing I want to show you is actually how the business development of the future looks like. Now, back in the days, and still now, many people confused business development with sales or with marketing or with this and that, right? Now, if we would do that, then our job as business developers would be very, very limited. However, considering that our job as business developers is to generate long-term value for our organizations and to do so in a sustainable and profitable way, we cannot be limited to these domains, right? right? Actually, modern business development looks a lot more like a mini entrepreneur, we can say. So we're really talking about professionals that have a very wide range of skills, and that can perform different types of functions as well, right? So we're talking about strategy, product, marketing, partnership, and sales. Why? Because all these functions can generate value for our companies, right? And if you want to be a well-rounded business development pro, that's really what you should focus on. So it's not having necessarily vertical knowledge and really becoming a specialist into one field. To become a specialist in business development, you actually need to work horizontally. So you need to develop your skills horizontally. You need to get curious about these different functions within the company, and you need to learn the skills of the future. So you need to be able to analyze data, to take decisions based on data. You need to be able to do financial analysis. You need to be able to really see the correlations between the actions that you're putting, the input that you're putting into work, and what it actually what actually yields in terms of results, right? And then build strategies that can scale these functions, these initiatives that worked. So this, if you want, you can take a screenshot maybe of this one. That's really the modern business development, and then you can make yourself a sort of a upskilling or reskilling plan based on this that can really set you up for success. Now, in terms of resources for upskilling yourself, you definitely don't have, you have so much, really. You can watch a lot of free content, you can read free content, you can take courses, training, free, for paying, personalized, not personalized. You really have like no excuse basically to upskill yourself and to become modern business development. Now, to make your life a little bit easier though, we also thought of making a little roadmap or an idea roadmap that you could implement in order to adapt to these different trends. Now, if you want, you can take a screenshot also of this one, but basically the idea is to give you sort of like a time-bound roadmap of all the items and the activities you can take in order to implement these trends. Of course, feel free to adapt that, right? So obviously, maybe some of you already know everything about AI, or you have great soft skills. But if you want to improve, this is something you can implement. For example, in terms of skill development, what you could do is to just reflect on your skill set and then identify an area for improvement. Personally, I do this every year. So every year I start the year setting some learning goals for myself. And one of my goals for this year is actually to take some leadership courses from some institutions. The Dale Carnegie Academy, for example, is one of them. And I really want to improve my leadership skills. That's also one of the skills for the future. So important to focus on that. Now, this is for business development pros. Now here, we really imagine a business development pro, which is an individual contributor that doesn't have too much influential power in the company, meaning you can basically only integrate these things in your day-to-day job. So obviously less impactful on an overall scale, but very impactful on your own day-to-day job. Keep in mind that this can also set precedent for you to, help other colleagues within your companies and really set yourself as the example. This is for BD pros. We also have one for managers. Now, not sure how many managers we have here today. You can let us know in the chat. But when we're talking about managers, obviously your first job is also to educate yourself on all these different trends. At the end of the day, you need to be the example for your team. So the first thing you should do is definitely to educate yourself. But then the next thing you have to do is absolutely to focus on reskilling or upskilling your team. Because again, the skills gap is real. You're not going to be able to find people that are perfect, that have the perfect skills for your company. You're much better off training your team, training internally, doing shadowing with your team, maybe putting in place initiatives to make sure that you encourage peer learning. There's so many online academies, e-learning, live training, and so on. So you really have a lot of option. And then of course, make sure that you encourage your business development teams to become more active on social media. And now the last one is roadmap for founders. Now, also in this case, we imagine a founder that doesn't have much resources, both in terms of human resources and financial resources. So obviously everything is a little bit more complicated. However, as mentioned, there is really a lot of resources, free resources, low cost resources that can really help you to get to the right level of understanding of these new trends, and then making sure that you can implement them smoothly in your company. Now, I went a little bit longer. Of course, if you want to grow your business development career, do check our website. We have about 4 courses active at the moment. And on the 12th of February, we're launching 10 more courses, which are going to cover networking skills, negotiation, data analysis as well, of course, social selling, and a lot more of the topics we talked about today. So feel free to have a look at it. And by all means, check our blog. There is a lot of information that you can get for free that can really help you improve your day-to-day job. That is also it for today. I'm gonna stop the recording at the moment.